This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, football fans, and welcome to the Onside Kick. My name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, I'm joined by the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
And Mark, we're finally here. I said this the last time, but we are officially here in that both Todd McShay and Mel Kiper have now come out with their 1.0 mock drafts.
It's finally coming.
Mel Kiper came out with his last week, and I kind of always feel like it's a thing where they know when we record, Mark, and they go, oh, you know what? We're going to wait for Ricky and Mark to record a podcast, then we'll drop the mock draft.
Yeah, they like to do it that way. And, you know, that's all right. There's still time to talk about it. Fortunately, it's not like they're doing them too consistently to where we can't catch up. But we got it all set. If you've been waiting, if you've been wondering what we think, you're about to find out.
And, I mean, this isn't like the final week. I think it's the final week before the draft. They have their, like, Todd McShay comes out with his on Monday. And then the day before the draft, Mel Kiper comes out with his. We've got time to talk about this. We're going to be talking about the mock draft. Later on, we're going to be talking about the two final games before the biggest game in the NFL and the AFC and NFC championships. But let's get to this mock draft, Mark. And with any mock draft, where do you start? You start at the top. Me and Brandon Swanson talked about this pick when we knew it was official on the Prime Time podcast. But if you are the Tennessee Titans, everyone, as this podcast is going up, can read who you think the Titans should pick, but tell America who the Titans should select number one overall.
Yeah, I'd go with Tunsil. I mean, yes, Joey Bosa is a fantastic player. Yes, he's going to do a lot of great damage on defense, but you've got a young quarterback who got himself hurt last year at the end of the season. Do you want that to happen again? Because if you don't draft an offensive lineman, one of the best offensive linemen, he's going to get hurt again. It's just what's going to happen, especially mobile-ish quarterbacks. So that's why, for me, it's clear-cut. You got a good quarterback last year. Now keep him on his feet. Give him time. Let him find those receivers that you don't really have and that you hopefully will find at some point, whether it's through the offseason, through free agency, or through the draft, whatever it might be. Just got to keep the guy on his feet. Keep him healthy.
And I mentioned that everyone can see who you already said the Titans should select because you can click down below in the description. I'm going to put it there for you guys. Mark's 1.0 came out today as this podcast is up on our SoundCloud and YouTube pages. But I'm kind of in agreement with you. I feel like, okay, you know what? Go ahead. Take Laramie Tunsil. Even though, let's be honest, out of the two, Joey Bosa or Laramie Tunsil, the sexy pick is to take Joey Bosa. Take the guy that can get after the quarterback. Can it help your team? Yes, of course. However, with me, I kind of agree with you. You got to protect the franchise player that you picked up last year. However, the flip side to it with Joey Bosa, and this is why this isn't the last time we're going to be talking about this, folks. We are going to be asking this question all the way down to, you know how last year it was Winston or Mariota?
Yeah.
This year it's going to be Bosa or Tunsil. Because that's what we're going to be asking all the way to the draft. Because with Joey Bosa, it's going to be, well, okay, you got to go up against Andrew Luck twice. You got to go up against Blake Bortles twice. Who is Blake Bortles one of the elite quarterbacks? No. But he can get the job done if you let him. The Houston Texans, we don't really like. Brian Hoyer throws 4 picks in a game, so you can put out Swiss cheese, and they'll get interceptions against Brian Hoyer and the Texans. But the two that I mentioned, Bortles and Andrew Luck, hoping that Andrew Luck stays healthy next season, Joey Bosa can be that player to get after the quarterback. And I know he had one stat I'm going to throw out there, 51 tackles for loss over 3 seasons at OSU. So I see there's a benefit with taking Bosa. Plus, he's the sexy pick because you want a guy who, boom, he's going to action right from the word go, can start day one. But you took your sexy pick last year in Mariota. Now protect him.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that when you're talking about the sexy pick. You know what else is sexy is when your quarterback can throw touchdowns. And he can't
or
do
run
that.
for touchdowns.
Sure. He can't do either one of those things if he's going to be on the ground. And sure, Joey Bosa would be great to get to guys like Andrew Luck, Blake Bortles, quarterback X in Houston. But Houston's going to be throwing a lot of guys at Marcus Mariota twice a year. The Colts, hopefully their defense is going to improve. The Jaguars, you expect their defense to improve as well. So they're going to be throwing guys at you too. You can't lose. You're getting two of the best players in the draft. You just basically get to make your choice on that. To me, I'm going to go. I don't necessarily think it's safe. Either one are pretty safe. But I'm going to go the more safe route and just say, let me protect my quarterback. Let him work.
And the one thing that I have to throw out there, we put this in at the very beginning of your mock draft, is one of the things we're not getting the full aspect yet because of where we are in the season is we don't know the team. Like, we can say, oh, well, the teams need this. Oh, left tackle, it's a need for the Titans. But if they go out in free agency and get a left tackle, okay, well, that's not a need
anymore
for the draft. So, I mean, there are things like the personnel for some teams aren't set yet.
Yeah, this is a snapshot.
This is very early, but I will say one thing. You know who's probably in the best position with this Titan pick? The Chargers. Because no matter who the Titans pick, the Chargers are going to get a number one quality talent at number 3.
Probably,
The reason why I say that is both you and Mel Kiper are in agreement. Browns are going to go quarterback, go with Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best option there for quarterback.
Is he better than Paxton? Because now when we're looking quarterbacks, this is the same thing as Winston Mariota. Goff or Lynch?
I don't think it's the same
Goff
at
or
all.
Lynch? That's what we're going to be asking ourselves.
Lynch is not ready to play in the NFL today. Goff,
I don't think
arguably
any of these quarterbacks are ready to play in the NFL day one.
Arguably, Goff is the best guy to play day one. To come in tomorrow and start.
If you
Lynch is not ready.
But
Lynch is not ready to do it at all. If you throw Lynch out there, he's going to be done in about 3 games. I really don't think he's got it in him to start from the beginning. Goff at least can be passable. Unfortunately, it's very Cleveland Browns, esque here of they throw a guy who's not really ready. He goes out there, he's going to fail. Next year, they're going to draft another quarterback. Or pick some, random journeyman off of the offseason free agency. I don't really think there's a big question. And you can see in my mock draft that I don't think Lynch succeeds in the NFL if he doesn't go somewhere where he can sit for a few years. I think Goff would really benefit from that too, but Lynch, he's really a guy who he needs it. He's not ready yet.
Well, I think all 3 of, and I say 3 because, and we're going to get to all of them in this discussion, the first rounders, as of right now, the first rounders, Goff, Lynch, and then Carson Wentz, the guy who won either, I want to say it's 4 or 5 straight FCS titles this past season with the Bison of North Dakota State. Wentz is a guy, he's got to sit. Lynch is a guy, I liked his numbers, although he had a bad bowl game for Memphis. However, he's not Andrew Luck. He's not Jameis Winston. He's not Marcus Mariota. He's not the guy that, okay, I'm going to go out there and start day one. I didn't even think that of Goff. I like Goff. I think that Goff will eventually develop into a quality NFL quarterback. However, let's take it as an example of a former Cal quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Did Aaron Rodgers start day one? No, he sat behind Brett Favre, and now look what happens. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the NFL today.
But there's no chance that any quarterback coming out of the Browns, whoever they take, if they take him in the first round, he's starting. If they take him in the second round, he's starting. Third round, he's probably starting. There's just nobody else there. Johnny Manziel won't be there. Yeah, the McCown is kind of sort of there, but he's not gonna last. They'll probably pick up one of the various journeymen who will be traveling around doing something, looking for a new spot. But whoever goes there, he's going to start.
Bring up some of those journeymen. To me, this is what Cleveland. If you're going to go quarterback with that number 2 pick, let's say they're going to go Goff. Or let's just decide, for argument's sake, they're saying, you know what, Goff's our guy. What they have to do in free agency, I think, go and get Sam Bradford for like a 2-year deal.
I don't know if that's going to work because they're saying out of Philadelphia, we think Bradford can work here still.
What I heard today on ESPN, this could have changed the hours after I heard it, from, I want to say it was Jaleesa Anderson, was outside reporting that Bradford's probably going to be out because of money. They don't want to pay him the...
I don't think anyone's going to pay Bradford
his cap hit for this past year was $12.9 million. So if he's getting anywhere near that, the Eagles, in my mind, not going to want to pay that. They have Mark Sanchez
I think Sam
on the
Bradford
roster.
knows he's not getting that money.
No, he's not. And the thing right now that the reports that I saw earlier today that came out from SportsCenter was that Doug Peterson, very close with backup from KC, Chase Daniels. What they'll probably do is bring in Daniels to be the backup and just say, you know what, for this year, because there's no quarterbacks in the draft that we like, Mark Sanchez, it's your job. Because Sam Bradford, I think his time in Philly's done. I don't think he comes back to play in Philly.
I can't imagine Sam Bradford 2 years from now starting really much of anywhere.
Out of all these quarterbacks, though, that free agency, Bradford's going to be available, I think. Fitzpatrick, he's either going to sign or be franchise tagged by the Jets, so he ain't going anywhere. Kirk Cousins, he ain't going to leave the Redskins. They're going to re-sign him. Brock the Cock-a-doodle-doo ain't going to leave Denver because they're going to re-sign him because win or lose this weekend, Peyton Manning's going to be retired. And after that, it's like, okay, where do we go? Those were the big quarterbacks that were going to be free agents this year.
You got RG3 possibilities. You got Johnny Football possibilities. You got to do some things to make those work. But you have possibilities to get some of these guys, but nothing is that exciting. I don't expect any of it to really be great. Maybe Jackson says, hey, I want A.J. McCarron. I'm going to make a trade to get A.J. McCarron because he just had some familiarity with him for a while over in Cincinnati. But I honestly, if you are a team, doesn't matter if you're the Cleveland Browns or whoever, if you're a team that does not have quarterback right now, you're not in a good position. You really aren't. This is not really the year. All these guys are the kind of guys that need some time to learn a little bit more, develop a little bit more, and they're not going to get that if you are one of these teams, one of your Los Angeles Rams or your Cleveland Browns, your Houston Texans. You don't have the luxury of letting this guy sit because the NFL is a immediate gratification league. Win now. You drafted that guy in the first round. I want to see him out there right now. That's the way it works. And that's why, unfortunately, Jared Goff, yet another Cleveland Browns quarterback, essentially.
Well, and another thing I just want to throw out there before I get to another point, because I did fact check myself, was that Hugh Jackson came out, and at first it's like when he was interviewing, it was reported that he even told the brass at the Browns, you know what, let's move on. If it's okay if I move on from Johnny Manziel. Because if you're saying I have to keep him, I'm not going to take the job. That's what it seemed like. And they said, oh, no. If you don't want Johnny Manziel, we're not tied to him. Now it's kind of like a thing as of the end of last week that Hugh Jackson's like, well, you know what? I haven't talked to Johnny. I'm feeling out the room right now, and we're going to see what could happen. Is Johnny most likely out the door? Yes.
But if you say it this way, you might be able to trade him.
Yeah, it looks like he may try to work things out, but it's probably not going to work. The one thing I will say is, Mark, you were right. Since that report that I watched earlier this morning, things have changed. This is what new head coach Doug Peterson has to say about Sam Bradford. And I quote, I think Sam's a quality quarterback. I think he's a top-notch quarterback. Look what he did the last half of the season. The numbers he was able to put up as a quarterback, he would fit perfectly with a system that I'm going to bring, end quote. So it looks like, to me, does Sam Bradford stay in Philly? Right now, I'm going to say no, because I'm going to say he's going to want too much. But based on that quote, it looks like Doug Peterson wants to keep him in Philly. So I stand corrected.
For Philadelphia, I mean, he's the best option, unfortunately. And that's not saying, that's not praising anything. Don't think I'm praising Sam Bradford. He's just the best option.
So, I mean, let's say he stays in Philly. Fitzpatrick's going to stay in New York. All these quarterbacks are staying right where they are. The Browns are pretty much, it's like whoever we draft at number 2, he's starting.
Yeah, exactly.
Day 1.
Exactly.
And it's just
It's Cleveland Browns.
It's a cycle at this point.
It's the Cleveland Browns. Teams that draft quarterbacks in the first round draft quarterbacks in the first round.
Now, let me throw this out there. If you're the Browns, do you say, okay, let's keep Manziel so we can start Manziel the first year, or do you just say, you know what, Goff's the guy?
Manziel's gone.
Manziel's gone for sure.
You have to at some point cut this kid off. I mean, seriously, he's just been lingering around the organization. He doesn't want to be there. They don't want him there. He's a distraction from the team. He's causing problems off the field. He's a locker room cancer, et cetera, et cetera. Just get rid of him at some point. New coach comes in. If our favorite Hugh Jackman does not go in there, the Wolverine, and slice and dice that roster, there's some problems.
Now, the second quarterback I'm just going to throw out there. For the other 2 quarterbacks, Mel Kiper has them going. Lynch is the next one off the board. 15 to the L.A. Rams. Probably would sit behind Foles for a few years. Then maybe become the starter if he develops. Then we have...
Although I will say, in that situation, remember, immediate gratification. If Foles plays like Foles played last season, I don't think Paxton Lynch gets the luxury of sitting for too long.
No, he's coming in mid-season. Then the other one, Carson Wentz, going number 22nd overall to the Houston Texans. That's an interesting one to me because I'm standing by it. Texans, if he's there, go Ezekiel Elliott. Replace Arian Foster now.
Yeah.
Replace him now because, none of these quarterbacks are going to fix your problem. Just have Brian Hoyer for another year.
For sure. That would be pretty smart. I mean, I don't think that, like we've been saying with this, these quarterbacks aren't ready to start day 1. Houston Texans are probably in the best situation to where he might get the luxury of 6 games.
And another thing the Texans could do is I say stick with Brian Hoyer. Right when I said that, the thing that I thought of is if they really wanted to, they could say go with Zeke in the first round. Then in the second round, if they're there, take a Connor Cook or a Christian Hackenberg or any of the other quarterbacks that are going to be left later in the draft. Tom Brady was a 6th rounder. How many times are we going to mention that until the draft?
Probably a bunch. And how many Tom Bradys are there out there? Not very.
There's one. There's only one Tom Brady, and he's the GOAT.
I mean, but the problem is for that, unless Philadelphia does go and get Sam Bradford, they're going to be on the Connor Cook watch. You're looking at some of these other teams. The Chicago Bears might be thinking about the future. Connor Cook watch. Miami Dolphins. Does a new coach want...
The Connor Cook watch.
Does he want a new coach? A new quarterback? Even the Baltimore Ravens might be thinking about the future. There's a lot of these teams up here that might be looking for that second round guy.
They got to get that stank off their team first, the stank of Mark Trestman.
Yeah, the stank of Mark Trestman tends to ruin everything.
But an interesting prospect, and he was on mine and Todd McShay. He was a little bit higher because the incident had just happened. However, I'm not going to say where you had him going. You had him going really late. For that, you can check out Mark's mock draft. However, Mel Kiper has this prospect going 13th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles, Robert Nkemdiche, defensive lineman, Ole Miss. And the one thing I want to ask you is, this is more of a broad view of when everything is said and done. How far do you think Nkemdiche falls when we actually get to the draft? Not right now. I don't want the snapshot. I want where he'll actually fall when we're all said and done. And if it's out of the first round, does he even fall out of the first round?
I don't necessarily think he'll fall out of the first round. I think he'll be a late first rounder. I think he'll have the opportunity to solve some problems, to answer some of these questions. Shane Ray? I could see that. I definitely could. You're looking at a guy who is in some trouble now, but it was early enough to where he can bounce back. It's unfortunate to say that this is a good thing, but it was early enough to where he could bounce back. Because if I remember right with Shane Ray, things were a lot closer to the draft. So that was not
I want to say it was
situation.
After the combine or right before the combine.
That would sound right. So I think he will fall quite a bit. You see him falling back in some mock drafts, such as mine. Then I think you'll see him climb his way a little bit back up. I could see 20s range. And whatever team that might be in the 20s, if it's a Jets, a Texans, the Bengals, Steelers, whatever it might be, those teams are going to be very lucky because he's a fantastic player. If he can turn it around, you're thrilled that you got him so late in the draft. If he doesn't turn it around, yeah, you're not, you're kind of kicking yourself a little bit, but he was a steal at the 20s for his potential. So that's where I would see him going, in that 20 range.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, I'm looking at that Kimdichie to the Eagles right there, and with the Eagles, the first thing I think about is, crap, what would they need at this point? Because you could say they could need a quarterback. However, if Doug Peterson thinks that Sam Bradford's the guy, sure, let Sam Bradford be the guy. Or if you think, hey, you know what, you got to move on from DeMarco Murray. However, the one thing is the Eagles aren't going to draft a Zeke Elliott at number 13, because the one thing that Anderson said in her report earlier Tuesday morning was she spoke to Darren Sproles, and without kind of saying it, he just said, you know what? With going back to this behind the quarterback system, we're going to go, not being in the shotgun, not all three of us are going to be getting touches. One person's going to be left out, and it's going to be very frustrating, and I'm going to leave it. He's like, I'm just going to leave it at that.
For sure.
So someone's got to go between DeMarco, Matthews, and Sproles. At that point, the Eagles are a team where it's like, if Kimdichie's there, why not? Why not go there and try to get some help?
Yeah, if you're not concerned at all about that. But the Eagles, they need a lot of things. I think the Eagles would love the dream situation, and in my eyes for the Eagles, is they're saying, you know who we want to drop? Quan Treadwell. We want him to drop. Because he's not going to, projected right now, he's not that far off from the Eagles.
The spot where Laquan's going in Kiper's draft is 7th overall to the 49ers. I don't really like that. I don't think Chip Kelly makes that move. Because, Colin Kaepernick...
He's not a duck.
Well, he's not a duck, but I think Chip Kelly would be a guy to go more for defense first than the wide receiver. I know last year, Eagle fans are probably like, but Ricky, we took Nelson Aguilar, but the one thing, what did Aguilar have that was really good in his skills that he never got to use in the NFL? His punt and kick returns. So that was one of those things that, maybe if we can get that, he can catch it in open field and treat it like a punt or kick return.
Yeah.
That kind of fit the Chip Kelly, they thought was going to fit the Chip Kelly style, and he was speedy. Laquan Treadwell, I just don't see the 49ers going out and getting a wide receiver.
They've got a lot of needs, and I don't think that's the number one need for them.
No, it's not.
It would certainly help, but it's not their number one need. Now, I did have them in mind going with Treadwell just because...
It was BPA.
Yeah, exactly. He's the best guy there. But then you have, if he doesn't go there, Miami Dolphins, they've got other needs. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a lot of other needs there, especially defensively. The Giants, they've got some pretty good wide receivers out there. The Bears don't need any wide receivers. The Saints could use a wide receiver, but it's not improbable that if he gets past the 49ers, he could fall all the way to the Eagles. So that's what I think would help out the Eagles quite a bit.
I think the only thing and I'm going to throw out the Bears, the only thing that could change from now until the draft, and of course I know we've said this is the snapshot.
Yeah.
This isn't probably where they're going to go at the end, but depending on what happens with Alshon Jeffrey, because I believe he's in the last year, he's now a free agent after this year.
Yeah.
If they don't re-sign Alshon, there could be a chance that at 11, Laquan Treadwell falls and Chicago Bears say, hey, let's bring the kid from Crete-Monee back home to the Chicago side of things and have him play with Kevin White, who's going to be coming back.
Double rookies, because Kevin White essentially is a rookie.
And he's a red shirt. Red shirt sophomore, let's say, or a red shirt freshman, we'd say in the NFL. But, yeah, I just don't see the 49ers really going with, and I'm looking here on NFL.com, they have the top 3 needs. Well, the top need is quarterback, but let's be honest, Chip Kelly is going to stay. I believe he's going to stay with Colin Kaepernick.
I think he's going to give it a shot. I think he'll definitely give it a shot.
I mean, the beginning of the season, Colin Kaepernick is going to try to be revived by Chip Kelly. Other than that, they have right tackle. They do have wide receiver down there at the 3rd top need, and the number 4, the defensive line. So I'm looking at that, and either the Eagles at that point, or not the Eagles, the 49ers at that point if you're looking at defensive line, you have either Shaq Lawson, the Clemson guy, Kemdichi, who can play anywhere on the D line, being from Ole Miss, or your next offensive tackle is Jack Conklin, Michigan State.
Yeah. Got a lot of good options there for them to take something that they don't really need that much. But if they value him so much higher, and then they are saying, well, we're going best player available off of our board, and he's just the best guy on our board, then that's one thing. But I don't agree necessarily.
There's one guy, if he falls to 7, they'll take him, I think. Ronnie Stanley, offensive tackle, Notre Dame, because they'll be like, hey, you know what? We got to protect Cap. We got to protect him. We'll leave the weapons where they are, and then they won't take Laquan Treadwell.
Yeah.
However, in this situation of Mel Kiper's draft, Stanley went off the board to the Ravens. At this point, is it Treadwell, Kemdichi, or Lawson? In this one, Mel Kiper said going with Treadwell. I don't really agree with that. I would have went more on the defensive side. But the one thing I'm going to ask you is about your Chicago Bears. At 11, Mel Kiper has him going Reggie Ragland, linebacker, Alabama. If that happened on draft day, how would you feel as a Bears fan?
I wouldn't be upset about it. I would be it'd be nice to have somebody on the inside part of the line, because the Bears have a million outside linebackers. None of them are really outside linebackers, but they're all there. They definitely, Chicago Bears need linebackers. They need probably safety help. I don't 100% believe in Fuller, but he is there. He's a body. But I don't think they need too much on the offense. But that offensive line was a mess. If one of those guys are available, it's not a bad idea to take a look. If Reggie Ragland is there, though, and he's the pick, I'm definitely not upset about it at all. I like, I love the idea of a defensive player out of Alabama coming, stepping right into the Bears' new 3-4 defense. I love that idea, so I definitely wouldn't be upset about it, not in the slightest. My hope would be that he would step up and become a leader. Maybe Luke Kuechly style, just immediately step in and say, this is my defense.
Well, and some of the guys that Mel Kiper mentioned in his analysis, Dick Butkus, Mike Singletary, Brian Urlacher.
Yeah.
These are guys that came in, leaders of that monsters of the midway defense, right there at the middle linebacker position.
And that's exactly what you need. You need a guy to just step in and do it immediately.
However, and another good thing with Ragland is Nick Saban in Alabama ran a 3-4 defense. So much like Vic is running there in Chicago. I will say there is one guy, though, that I'm kind of surprised that he's so high. DeForest Buckner at number 4 to the Cowboys. If Buckner would be available at 11, I think that's the one guy that the Bears would take over Ragland, because Buckner's a 3-4 guy who's an outside pass rusher. And that's what you need. You guys need a pass rusher.
It just kind of scares me that you got this giant out there. He just doesn't body type. He doesn't really fit the position that well. He's an anomaly. So that either is going to work exceptionally well, or it won't work at all. And in college football, it's worked really well so far. So that's good. That's definitely good. But I don't know. This guy's nearly 300 pounds playing defensive end. That sounds scary. That sounds awesome. Especially with a guy who really gets quarterbacks like he does. But I don't know. It makes me scared.
Do you think it's going to be a B.J. Raji situation?
I don't know.
Good to be on the defensive line, or will it be an Eddie Lacy situation where, man, dude, you're gassed after one carry?
Yeah, and now even the Packers are saying, I think he's going to need to get some of that weight off a little bit.
Dude, you need to lose some weight. That's what Mike McCarthy's saying.
That's what we've been saying since we saw him first put on the Packers jersey. I'm
going to ask you another question, though. I'm going to give you 2 wide receivers. You got to pick one. If you are this team, let's say you need wide receiver, who are you picking out of these 2? Josh Doxson, wide receiver TCU, or Will Fuller, wide receiver Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Because this is a situation that you had to come up with in your mock draft.
Yeah.
Vikings and Bengals both need wide receiver help. Both could use it. Vikings right ahead of the Bengals. Who would you take, Doxson or Fuller, over one or the other?
I agree with Mel Kiper's analysis that Doxson is the better one over Fuller. Fuller, I mean, it's just a consistency issue. Is he going to be consistent? Fortunately for the Cincinnati Bengals, he doesn't need to be the most consistent because he's not target number one. If he goes to the Minnesota Vikings, whichever wide receiver is there for the Minnesota Vikings, you're target number one most likely. Stephon Diggs, yes, he's good, but he's not going to really be number one in my eyes. I don't know. You might disagree, and you might think he's number one as a Vikings fan, but no, whoever the Vikings take, whether it's Doxson, whether it's Fuller, that guy is going to be the first person that Teddy Bridgewater's looking at.
See, it would all depend. If we didn't have Stephon Diggs, I would say Will Fuller. Because the first thing I would say is, you know what? I know that Mel Kiper says with Doxson, the three things he says is he's a guy that can A, stretch the field, B, run after the catch, and C, reliable set of hands. I know he says that, and those all sound great. But the one thing Will Fuller knows how to do, just run and we'll throw it to you. And he catches it. I mean, look all the way back to the beginning of the season when Deshaun Kaiser had to come in. That was that Virginia game. Just streak down the sideline and I will hit you in the end zone. Won them that game. That is something that Will Fuller can do. Now, we've got Stephon Diggs, so that changes things. Because of that, now I'm going to say, you know what, we can go with a guy like Doxson where it's not just a guy who you're just going to run straight down the field and we're going to throw it to you. We can throw it across the field to you. You have the hands to make the catches, can run after the catch. Stephon Diggs can be that guy to just streak down the side, and we'll hit him when he's open.
And you know what I like about Doxson? 6'3".
He's a tall wide receiver.
I like tall wide receivers.
Well, in Chicago, you guys were used to him with...
That's the way to go.
Brandon Marshall on one side, Alshon on the other.
It's always an option. He's always open. Even if he's double covered, he's open.
Now, we'll get to any of the other stuff. Here's the last position I wanted to talk about. The Denver Broncos. Right now, at 29 on Mel Kiper's because we don't know where the last three teams. I say three because the Patriots obviously don't have their first-round selection this year because of Deflategate, but at 29, Mel Kiper has Ezekiel Elliott going to the Broncos.
Yeah.
When you saw this, what did you think about it? Because the first thing I went was, don't they have two running backs?
They do, but neither one of them is Ezekiel Elliott.
But do they really need a running back?
What else do they need?
Is that the one thing they need?
What else do they need? They're the Denver Broncos. They are set. They are stacked. The Denver Broncos are good to go.
They're going to need a linebacker. I know this is the snap. I'm going to say this here. I know this is the snapshot, and right now Von Miller's on the team, but there's a chance Von Miller's not on this team come the draft, and they're going to go linebacker here.
I think the thing to really put this into perspective is, yes, they have two guys here. Neither one of them is Ezekiel Elliott, and if we can assume, once Peyton Manning is gone, what is Gary Kubiak going to do?
Run the ball.
Exactly. Nonstop. Run the ball all the time. If it's third down and long, run a halfback draw. If not a screen pass to your halfback, whatever it might be, he's going to run the ball because that's what the guy likes to do. He's not going to let Brock Osweiler pretend to be Peyton Manning. It's just not going to happen. So Ezekiel Elliott makes perfect sense to me. I don't necessarily know that I believe he's going to be there, but it makes sense.
Using this mock draft as the kind of basis for this, obviously this can change because we haven't had the combine yet. We haven't had the all-star games for college football yet. Here's what I think. If Von Miller re-signs with the Broncos go Ezekiel Elliott if he's there. If he's not there, I'm going to be bold and say if Von Miller is re-signed and Ezekiel Elliott is drafted by then, they'll take a stab and go Derrick Henry at 29. Barring they don't make the Super Bowl. If they make the Super Bowl, this will be like 30-31.
Yeah.
But they'll take, especially if they win the Super Bowl and are at 31, they'll say, screw it, we'll go Derrick Henry because the Titans may go with him at 32. I use air quotes because 32 would really be the first pick of the second round, which is the Titans. However, if Von Miller's not on this team, Leonard Floyd out of Georgia is the guy they go to because their top need is going to say, we need to replace Von Miller at the outside linebacker position, and they're going to go Floyd.
It's possible. I don't think Derrick Henry goes in the first round. A lot of NFL teams, and basically he needs a really, really good combine game. Or not game, but combine to do well. He needs to do really well because teams are down on him right now.
If he's going to go, the way I see it, if he's going to go in the first round, it's going to be 29 through 31.
And he needs Ezekiel Elliott to go like top 15.
Yeah.
And he needs him to go really high up so all the other teams are going, oh, wow. And they're going to start panicking and start figuring out what they can do. That's the only thing that's going to help him out. Teams are really seemingly down on him right now.
Is there anything, before we move on to the 2 games we're going to talk about for the conference championships, anything with this mock draft that you're like, man, we got to hit this? We have to hit this.
Not necessarily. I mean, I think we got pretty much everything good. There's nothing in this mock draft that I'm like, ooh, no, that's not going to happen. There's no surprises. It was pretty much what you would expect to have happen. And that's what happens in mock draft 1. Nothing crazy starts happening until, maybe 3 or 4. That's when we start to see the surprises.